I just finished watching the show Sprint on Netflix. So if you've seen it or you've watched the 2024 Paris Olympics, you may have seen the U.S. men's relay team. On paper, they were untouchable. They had the fastest individual runners in the world. But instead of winning gold as they planned, they got disqualified. The relay is completely different than a sprint. And they fell into the exact same trap most new managers do. Now let's talk about what the men's team were up against. These athletes spend 4 years training to run alone. They're solo superstars. Then they just have a few days to suddenly learn how to be a team and work together under a high pressure situation. They're also running blind. In the relay exchange, the person receiving the baton, they can't look back. They are straight. They're sprinting full speed, staring straight ahead, totally blind to what's happening behind them. And because they can't see, they rely entirely on a specific verbal cue, usually the word stick, and they have to trust that the incoming runner is on the correct side of the lane to hit their hand perfectly. So if the incoming runner is quiet or they're coming from the wrong direction, the baton hits the track and they're disqualified. This may be the exact struggle you are facing right now as a new leader. You spent your whole career training to be a solo high performer. You're the Noah Lyles of your department. But now you have to pass the baton to your team. And just like the men's team, you may be fumbling the handoff. You aren't giving clear verbal cues, so your team is running blind, or you're trying to hand off a boulder instead of a light baton. Maybe you're handing off from the wrong lane, but ultimately the work isn't being passed off and you and your team are growing more and more frustrated by the day. Today I'm going to show you the 3 delegation mistakes that can cause the fumble and the drop and how to finally make that clear connection. Hi, I'm Jen Arnold and I help new leaders navigate their first management role. Mistake number 1 is the hoarding trap. Here is the most dangerous lie new leaders tell themselves. It'll take me longer to explain it. I'm just going to do it myself. In a relay, this is the runner who just won't even pass the baton because they think the handoff will slow them down. So they keep running the whole race alone. That can't happen. So I saw this recently with a client. She wanted to hand off a big project to one of her directs. Her boss even encouraged it. But every time we met, she kind of kept kicking the can down the road until she had more time. So she felt like she didn't have the time to break the project down by step and package it clearly for her direct report. And this mental load of delegating felt heavier than the actual work itself. So she kept hoarding it, and it kept her away from the projects that would help her get seen as a strategic leader, which was her goal. We spent about 10 minutes of her just brain dumping all of the tasks she does with this program that she wanted to hand off to her direct. And as she did that, she's like, oh, there's this one piece at the beginning she could take right away. It's just this recurring report that happens monthly. This is an easy thing to go ahead and hand off to her. Once she realized she didn't have to map out the entire program to hand over, she felt immediately lighter and the project started moving to her direct. This is the D in my deal framework, decide. You have to stop hoarding the work because you're too busy and decide on one small piece that buys your time back. But here's the thing, even if you hand off the right task, your delegation will still fail if you miss this next step. So remember that runner looking forward? They're running blind. They can't see what you see. They're waiting on your cue to know exactly what to do. Mistake number 2 is the mind reader trap. You assume they know what you want without giving them the cue. So let's just say I tell you, I need an update for senior leadership. That's the instruction. You might give me a 50-page dissertation, but in my head, good looks like a 1-page bulleted summary. Okay, this gap is where trust dies and frustration lives. This is the E in the deal framework, explain. You have to paint the picture of what good looks like. Don't just assign the task. Tell them what format you need it in, who is the audience this is going to, and if you can, say, hey, here's what I'm expecting. Here's what good looks like. Give them context so they can run with it. And that leads to mistake number 3, hover or vanish. In a relay, you have to stay in your lane. If you crowd the next runner and you step out of your lane, not only will they maybe trip or fumble the baton, you'll be disqualified. And this actually happened back in Rio at the Olympics to the U.S. women's team. During the race, the U.S. dropped the baton and they were disqualified. But when they looked at the footage, what happened was Brazil got out of their lane, bumped Allyson Felix on the American women's team, and Brazil was now disqualified, and the U.S. team got to rerun their race by themselves with no one else on the track. Most new leaders are terrified of micromanaging, of crowding their team's lanes. So they vanish completely. They just run out of the stadium. They say they're doing it in the name of giving autonomy, but they're actually giving neglect. Now, as a leader, you want to help your team stay in their lanes while giving them some autonomy. Autonomy without guardrails is making them run on the track solo with you nowhere to be found. Here's how it shows up. I had a client who really didn't want to overstep. She didn't want to be a micromanager. And she had a team member who had this big vision for a project she was running. But the team member couldn't really articulate her vision and also had a habit of missing some deadlines. My client didn't want to kill her creativity by asking her to explain her vision. So I had to reinforce, hey, that's not micromanagement. You need to give her some guardrails so she's successful. The last thing this employee needed was more space. She needed a coach. She needed some structure to help her get that vision out of her head and into the world so it could actually execute successfully. This is the A and the L in the DEAL framework. Assess and lead. Assess the person. Are they a rookie who needs more hand-holding or more instruction? Are they new to the company and they need to understand the culture? Or are they a pro who just needs some guardrails and you to back off? Lead them accordingly. Stay in your lane, let them stay in their lanes, but don't leave the stadium. So delegation isn't about dumping work. It's about deciding what to hand off, explaining the cue so they aren't running blind, and leading from your own lane and letting them work in theirs. This is the DEAL framework. Now, if you want to know exactly where you stand as a leader, if you are erring on the side of solo sprinter versus running coach, I've put together a guide assessment for new leaders. It takes 2 minutes, it's free, and it's going to show you exactly which skills to improve upon or where you're already strong so you can make that transition from solo sprinter to coach. Grab that in the description below and on the screen. So if you're having a hard time even getting your mind wrapped around what delegating can look like in the first place, check out my video about how to stop doing everything as a new leader. Thanks for watching.